to do today is to talk about Asperger syndrome and how it affects me. This will be based on the speech I done at Autism Oxford in Headington, and I'll start off by talking about the early signs of Asperger's from my parents' perspective. My mother from early on knew there was something different. You could call it mother's intuition. Way before the social problems at school, she noticed there were difficulties when I was crawling as a baby. I was what one would call a lazy crawler. I would sort of use my arm very clumsily to crawl around the place, and the transition from crawling to toddling was much slower, and obvious that there were some problems there with motor coordination and clumsiness. Of course, when I found my feet, I was running everywhere, senselessly running. And one of my first intense obsessions was with toilets. A very intense obsession where it wouldn't matter if I was in town or if I was going round, say, my mother's friend's house or a relative's house or my grandmother's house. I had to see the toilet and I had to flush it and look at the water going down the pan. I suppose this was one of the early signs of Asperger's and autism, because it was being attracted to an object and it was an intense obsession. The transition from being with my parents, obviously going into education, before that, play school was a place where it really started to show that I had difficulties with interacting. We were in this hut. It was a hut next to, on campus next to the primary school, and I used to run around in a circle around the hut. I used to play puzzles. That was my obsession at that point in time. The teachers, I think, from talking to my mum, thought I was a naughty child, and from having conversations with my mum, they thought she was, and my dad, a bad parent. And this is one of the problems a lot of parents with autistic children get. They get a lot of misunderstanding. The social skills from the transition to play school and primary school, the problems were just becoming more obvious. I was not interacting, particularly in the playground. I would walk around the perimeter of the playground. I would be in my own little world. Comments were made about this, and comments were made about my walk. My walking was stilted, it was awkward. I walked with my feet flat. I used to drag my feet and used to look downwards like this, and one of the teachers decided to clap her hands and stop the class and make me walk in a line with all the pupils watching me, and clapped, I suppose in retrospect, in a patronising way, as if that was some sort of intervention that she needed to do that. That's one of the prominent memories I have from primary school, and feeling very embarrassed and very belittled. These problems continued until I was being bullied at the last year of primary school, and I went to the Park Hospital in Headington, Oxford I believe, and I went into this hut with about 12 other people around my age, 11, 12, and they were actually teachers, social skills how to act in scenarios, how to recognise body language, body movements, and I'm convinced now in hindsight that those people like me were all on the spectrum. They were all autistic, although there was no feedback given. The transition from primary to secondary was even worse. It was very anxious time for me. The reaction to the bullying and just this whole other school was very, very distressing for me. These problems with social skills never went away. They were constantly there, and the teachers used some very unusual ways of trying. I don't know what they were thinking. One example would be a teacher saying to me, "You're always crying in reception," and this crying was to do with me not wanting to be at school and to get away from school. It wasn't just because of the bullying. The bullying had always been there since the early sort of times of year 7, and from year 7 to year 10 this bullying never stopped. However, after 2 failed jobs because of this bullying and because of this myself becoming much more self-aware that there was something more to this than just being a victim of bullying, there was something going on with me